The Prepper Podcast, episode 46.
You've got to know whether or not their president's a crook.
The American people would never vote for socialism. He said, under the name of liberalism, the American people will adopt every fragment of the socialist program.
The Prepper Podcast is an up-to-date survival podcast based on military, wilderness, and modern-day survival and may be found at theprepperpodcast.com. I am Ken Jensen, and this is the podcast about everything survival. My goal is to teach you strategies on self-reliance and to develop survival skills and critical thinking in everyone, resulting in a more resilient and more enjoyable life. This is episode 46, and today we're going to discuss the Bill of Rights. That audacious, hairy Bill of Rights. And knowing your rights, and the Bill of Rights. You know, that thing that really doesn't matter anymore to Congress? We're going to discuss that. The Bill of Rights. The show notes for today's episode may be found at theprepperpodcast.com/046. You can also go to theprepperpodcast.com/Bill of Rights, and that will take you to today's show notes. The next thing that I have for you, I have housekeeping. I haven't done housekeeping in a little while, and I'm going to do it today, because today I recorded the first of a new product that is coming very soon. I have a brand new product that's coming soon. Remember, I told you guys that this is how I'm going to make this business sustainable. I will podcast for free, but I will create products. And this new one is a very good one. I recorded the first. This is like a 5-part thing, this product is. It's got like 5 different parts. And if you watched it back to back, you would probably, if you were there, I guess it would probably go about 4.5 to 5 hours. Now, each part is going to be about 45 minutes long or, something like that. But I'm not going to tell you what it's about. I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is. Just know that something's coming soon and it's something nice. And I think every single one of you will enjoy it immensely. Now, I already have an existing product, and if you would like to purchase it, you can go to theprepperpodcast.com/how to be a prepper. All right, that's theprepperpodcast.com/how to be a prepper. Or better yet, go to theprepperpodcast.com/shop or cleversurvivalist.com/shop, and that will take you just to my shop, and then you can see the product there. The shop isn't finished, so it doesn't look great, but you can still purchase the product, and I promise you that it is great. Okay, so I have my 1-year preparedness course, and that one is available on the shop. And then I have a new product coming out, which is a big product, and it is going to be awesome. And I will tell you maybe next week, maybe the week after. I haven't decided exactly when I'm going to tell you what it is. So keep tuned in future episodes and make sure that you listen for this new product that's coming out, because I promise you it will be worth more than any money you spend on it. Also, my 1-year anniversary will be coming up very soon. I believe that the podcast on October 3rd will be my 1-year anniversary of podcasting. That's right, 1 year of podcasting. So what that means is I've been doing this thing for an entire year, and this thing is doing fairly well. I have enjoyed all this podcasting. I've had so much fun doing this podcasting. Occasionally it will seem like work, because I have to make time to do this. I can't, one day I may not be able to go on a hike out in the woods because I have to come back and podcast. But I do enjoy the act of podcasting as well. So I have had fun this last year, and I hope that you have enjoyed it as well. I will talk more about the year on my 1-year anniversary podcast. The reason why I bring up the 1-year anniversary podcast is because I want you to send me questions. I want you to send me questions. You can do so by going to theprepperpodcast.com/Facebook or /Twitter or /Google+, and it will take you to the associated social media. All right, and then you can contact me there. You can email me. All right, you can email me at Ken, K-E-N, at theprepperpodcast.com. That's Ken at theprepperpodcast.com, or feedback at theprepperpodcast.com goes to the same email address. You can also comment in today's show notes. That's another way that you can do that. And remember, that's theprepperpodcast.com /046 or /Bill of Rights. The best method, the absolute best method for you to send me questions, and I prefer it this way, and it's easier for you because all you have to do is pick up your phone. Make sure that you have at least 3 bars if you're going to use a cell phone. Make sure you're not doing it with the window down if you're in your car, anything like that. Make sure that you call me where you have a decent signal, you're not going to drop the signal, and it's not really loud. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just want people to be able to hear your questions. The best method to call is to call me at 978-KNOWS-IT. That's 978-KNOWS-IT. For those of you who do not have letters on your touchpads or anything like that, or maybe you're back in the Stone Age with the click, 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 click phone, then you can go 978-566-9748. Once again, that's 978-566-9748. I really, really would like for you guys to send me all the questions that you may have. It's very important to me to make my 1-year anniversary podcast a big success. I want to be able to answer a lot of your questions. I want the entire hour show to be over me answering your questions. What I actually thought about doing was, since I was going to be somewhere around episode 50 or something like that, doing like a 50 question and answer type thing, but that'll probably take too long. It won't be a 1-hour show anymore, and I'm trying to keep my show somewhere around an hour. So just send me all your questions, call them in if you can, email me if you can't call them in. You can comment in the show notes, and you can also comment on Facebook, Twitter, or Google+. I would prefer the call, though, so please do that. Now we can get into the subject. And like I said, the subject is the Bill of Rights and knowing your rights. So let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce the episode with why it is important for you to know your rights. It is extremely important for each and every one of us to know our rights, and you are no different. It is important for you to know your rights. No one in this entire world, no one in this universe, no one ever, and never will they, no one cares about your life and your liberty more than you. Okay? Remember that. No one cares about your life and your liberty more than you do. There are people in this world that care about other people, but the fact is we are human, and we care about ourselves more than we care about others. Okay? There's no way that you care about me as much as you care about yourself. If you are one of very few people in this world that do, then that's great, but you are an exception to this very big rule. No one cares about your life and liberty more than you. I don't think that I will see you jumping in front of a bullet for me. All right? No one cares about your liberty more than you. All right? I may stand up for someone else's liberties, but it's a selfish reason. It really is. And if you disagree that you have the same selfish reason, then I will call you a big liar. Okay, the reason is very selfish. You will stick up for someone else's liberties because you don't want your liberties encroached. That is why. Because once they let it happen to one, then they can let it happen to more. If one person has their liberties taken away, then next they can come after you. That is why you stand up for other people's individual rights. Otherwise, you don't really care a whole lot. And I'm sorry to say this, but you don't. There are people in this freaking country. There are people in this country who will watch news and they will see all kinds of stuff about people's liberties being encroached on, about people whose children are taken away for absolutely no reason whatsoever, people that get arrested because they stood up for themselves in their own yard because law enforcement shows up and they trample their garden because they shouldn't have had a garden in their front yard. All right, no one cares about your liberty more than you do. All right, so if you stand up for others, it is a selfish reason. Just keep that in mind. There are rulers, dictators, and governments from the very beginning of time, these rulers, dictators, and governments have taken people's rights away. All right, and I've already given you a couple things. The Second Amendment, we're not even in the amendments yet, the Bill of Rights, but the Second Amendment is guns and gun control. Think about that. We have gun control in this country, and that is kind of a constitutional violation, don't you think? There are a lot of people, there might be a lot of people that are listening to this podcast right now, and you would say that gun control is not a violation of the Second Amendment, but I think I'm going to tell you that you're wrong. The Second Amendment is specifically so that we can protect ourselves from a tyrannical government. We'll get into that more, but anti-gun control is against that. So yes, rulers, dictators, governments, they've taken people's rights away. Think about Hitler, all right? Hitler in Germany, think about that. People's rights were taken away. The colonists, they took away rights of lots of Native Americans. People have taken rights away from African Americans. Slavery is a real big deal. All right. And today, believe me, there is slavery. There is a lot of slavery. Slavery is rampant. Both the old type of slavery and a new type of slavery called debt. Everybody is taking other people's rights away because it suits them. The next reason why it's important for you to know your rights is because law enforcement will find it very difficult to take advantage of you if you know all of your rights. All right? Everyone lies, and cops are no different. Law enforcement is no different than anyone else. They are still human, and everyone lies. So they will tell you things to get you to cooperate with them, even if it's against the law. And if you know your rights and you know the law, you can beat them at their own game because you will have the intelligence and you will have the information to do so. All right. Things like your rights when you're stopped, right? They can stop you. What you say will be used against you. You don't say anything. If you were protecting your home, that cop can come up to you and they can be like, man, that's Five Finger Harry, and he's been all over the place. He's notorious, and man, I am so glad that you took him out. Boy, it must feel good to take him out. And you could answer as in, yes, sir, it did. Thank you very much. And you won't even think anything about it. But the fact of the matter is when you're in court, now they can say, oh yeah, he told Officer Reggie that he was actually happy that he shot that guy. He was looking forward to it. They can twist anything that you say around. If you get a good enough attorney, they are going to twist anything that you say around, and it can and will be used against you in the court of law. And not only in the court of law, but they will do it in hearings, and they will also do it in interrogations. What you say will be used against you, so it's better not to say anything if you don't have to. You do not have to answer a police officer's questions. Okay, let me repeat that. You do not have to answer a police officer's questions without an attorney. You get an attorney before you answer a police officer's questions. Now, a lot of times, I will tell you, I will answer a police officer's questions. All right? I don't have anything against police officers. As a matter of fact, my 1-year preparedness course, I actually have a discount that I give to law enforcement because I believe law enforcement, the good guys, do a very good job, and they're just doing their job trying to protect people. But there are a lot of bad cops too, and we all know that. All right, so you don't have to answer their question without an attorney present. So sometimes it would just be better not to answer their questions. All right, that is your right. Your right is to not answer the questions. And you also do not have to consent to a search of yourself, your car, or your house without a warrant. Okay, they require a warrant or probable cause before they can search you, your car, or your house. If they don't have probable cause and they don't have a warrant, they can't search unless you give them permission. Once you give them permission, then they can search whatever they want. All right. So the next reason that it's important to know your rights is to keep you from incriminating yourself. Like I already said, what you say will be used against you. So you can say things that may not sound like it's incriminating to you, but in the court of law, the jury and the way that it gets manipulated will definitely be used against you if it can be. So if you don't say it, they can't use it against you. They are always listening. Like I said, that cop may be buddy-buddy with you. They may be just hanging out, acting like they're all cool, acting like they're your friends, and then in the end, they're not. They're trying to get you to slip up because they are trained to know when people are lying, and they are trained to understand these signs and keywords and red flags in your conversation to make a judgment on you whether you're guilty or not. So it's best to keep the information that you give them extremely basic and then don't say anything else. All right? If they want you to say more, then you get your attorney. Don't say it because they are listening. The next thing is that you can protect yourself from those taking advantage of the justice system, the judicial system. That's why it's important to know your rights. You can protect yourself from those that take advantage of the system because they are out there. There are lots of people out there, and some of them are bad cops, okay? I'm not just hounding on cops here. I'm sorry, but it's just the easiest target. It's not all cops. I mean, it's lawyers. All right, there are attorneys that are after people. There are there's just the basic government. There is specific judges. There are juries that are biased. There are people that take advantage of the justice system. And you can protect yourself from being taken advantage of when you know your rights. You can get knowledgeable professionals that will represent you. So a knowledgeable attorney that can stop you from doing something stupid, or because that knowledgeable attorney, let me step back just a second before I move on. That knowledgeable attorney will tell you, you have a right not to do this, and you have a right to do this, and they don't have a right to ask you this, and they don't have a right to do that, okay? You get a knowledgeable professional to represent your case. There have been multiple times in which people have gotten off scot-free, whether they've done anything wrong or not, okay? We're not talking about whether you're guilty or not. These people, let's just assume that they were not guilty, but they were found guilty by a juror until there is an evidence flaw. The attorney will find a flaw in the evidence or a flaw in the court proceeding, and then the person gets off free because someone did something the wrong way. And now you are the person taking advantage of the judicial system to get yourself off free. So you have to know your rights, and you have to know the due process, and you have to know your right to a due process, and we'll get into that as well. Another reason why it's important is so that you can know the power of the population for checking, you can use the power of the population for checking the system. All right? It's important that you understand the power of the population, the power of the herd. All right? You can have all of your ideas heard. All right, you can use news stations and you can get your ideas out there. You can utilize the people on a petition, and you can petition your local government for things. The power of the population is very strong whenever it comes to making changes. So you get enough people in a general localized population that wants something, and generally you can get law enforcement to do that. All right, you can have your ideas heard in those proceedings. You can have you can have letters sent to congressmen and stuff like that. And yes, we all know that there are a bunch of crooks in politics. However, if there are a lot of people that want something and this person wants to get re-elected next time around, they're going to give you what you want, assuming that they don't have somebody buying them off to do it otherwise. So you can definitely use the population to have your ideas heard, because they look at the number of people and realize that that is representative of the entire populace. You can also use media and publicity to tell everyone about a terrible wrongdoing. Someone does you wrong, you can tell people about it. There are cell phones floating all over the place nowadays, and it's hard for people to get away with things now because there's publicity. Everything goes public. Everything goes viral. People post things on YouTube, and you see videos of people that they give police a hard time. The police don't really know the laws, and I'm not saying all police. I'm saying in these particular situations, these police don't really know the law, and this person does know the law, and you have lots of videos floating around, like the guys asking if they're being detained and stuff like that. They're not doing anything wrong. The police are shouting at them, and they're asking if they're being detained, and the police don't answer their questions. They keep evading the question, and the guy essentially just walks away, and that's nothing. All right, so you can make everything extremely public. Now, the next reason why it's important to know your rights is you can protect yourself from the criminal. And I don't mean like just like a con man. I don't mean a criminal, like a guy that goes to jail. You can protect yourself from criminal people. There are people who are not cons, they're not convicted, but they are criminals. Their behavior is criminal. Their morality is criminal. All right? You can protect yourself from the social and political criminals when you know your rights. The next reason why you should know your rights is to protect your privacy, sort of. We all know that there is a lot of lack of privacy. To say, I mean, that's the best I can do. Lack of privacy. All right. You got the NSA. I mean, the NSA probably has like 15 copies of this podcast before you even get to hear it. All right. They probably, they got this huge thing in Utah that they can't even keep cool because they got so much computer power, and all it's doing is looking at the American people and what the American people are doing. All right. But by knowing your rights and by understanding your rights and by knowing the proceedings of the judicial system, there are ways for you to protect your privacy. There are ways to get it done. All right. So now that we've discussed the reason why you need to know your rights and the reason, and on all the benefits of actually knowing your rights, the next thing that we need to discuss is the Bill of Rights. But before I get to the Bill of Rights, let me cover the illiteracy of the sheeple in this nation. Let me discuss the illiteracy of this nation. The illiteracy of this nation is the reason why we lack basic rights. The illiteracy of people in this country and the ignorance of people in this country is the reason why there is gun control. There is the reason why there is plant control. And that's right, plants. There's a reason why that stuff's controlled. I mean, it's a plant, and it's illegal, but it's a freaking plant. All right, there's a reason why this stuff is illegal, because people let it happen, because people don't know their rights. There are a lot of things that people are starting to wake up to, but it may be too little too late. We'll have to see. But when you are ignorant of your rights, people will take advantage of your rights. And when people take advantage of your rights, especially if, let's say, they take advantage of your rights and they do so in a court proceeding, well, the way that our law has been set up now is that the court, when a judge makes a judgment, it actually becomes law. They use this versus that. There's this case 10 years ago, and this judge made this judgment against this person and not this person, and if this is very similar to that, then that in itself says that he broke the law in another judge's mind. Yes, the next judge and jury have to make a decision, but when there is a judgment, it essentially becomes common law. It becomes law, and you can't keep up with every court proceeding that occurs in this nation. You can't do that. But most people are ignorant of their basic foundational rights. And that is how all of these proceedings and all these judicial members and all these law enforcement members can take advantage of people, and they can refuse to give them their rights because they don't know them. The only people that can keep up with all of the rights and all of the different laws and stuff like that are, let's be honest, criminal attorneys. They're the only ones that can keep up with it, as well as judge and jury and prosecutors. They're the only ones that can keep up with it. So it's very important that you don't contribute to the illiteracy of the nation, because the dumber we get, the more they're going to take advantage of us. The more they take advantage of us, the dumber they're going to make us. And the dumber they make us, the more they can take advantage of us again. It's a never-ending downward spiral of ignorancy and slavery. So let's not fall into that trap. We're going to discuss now the Bill of Rights, the 10 articles that are in the Bill of Rights. Okay? I can't just go over the entire Constitution and stuff like that, but it's important that you know the Bill of Rights because it's a very foundational document. So let's get started on the Bill of Rights. All right, understand that there are actually 2 articles prior to the Bill of Rights, and the first article in the Bill of Rights is Article the 3rd, okay? So we're going to start off at the first article of the Bill of Rights, which is the 3rd article in the Constitution, all right? And let me start by reading the article, and then I'll give you my take on each and every one of them. And if you have problems with the way that I represent these articles, then you know what? Make a comment in my show notes. All right? I've already told you. theprepperpodcast.com/046 or /Bill of Rights. All right? I welcome your comments and I welcome your critiques, but this is my podcast and I'm going to tell you like it is. The first article of the Bill of Rights says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. There is a lot of things wrapped in this one article, okay? We're going to cover a lot of it. All right, first off, religious freedom. There is religious freedom in this. The government cannot place one religion over another, and they can't stop people from practicing their religion. So it is constitutional that you can't stop people from practicing Christianity. It is constitutional that you can't stop people from practicing Islam. It is constitutional that even freaking Scientology, as a religion, people are allowed to practice their religion. Okay, you can't stop people from practicing their religion. All right, there's one big problem with this. Think about, as much as I don't want to go into it, I'm going to bring it up. Shots, immunizations. All right, immunization shots. There are a lot of people now that don't believe in immunization shots. Number one, because it's, there are some medical issues with it. And number two, there are a lot of people that claim a religious exemption. And the reason why they claim that exemption is because there are aborted fetus cells in a lot of different immunization shots. All right? So there are a lot of people that do a religious exemption. However, that's not in every state. I live in a state that allows religious exemptions, but there are some states that don't allow it. And there are some states, even my state, that allows religious exemptions. They don't allow philosophic exemptions. Philosophic basically meaning I don't want to do it because I don't want to do it, and you're not going to make me because it's illegal for you to make me. Okay? But religious exemptions. Not every state has a religious exemption. But here it basically says that they have to respect the establishment of religion. They can't prohibit the free exercise of religion or abridge the freedom. Okay, so the Constitution basically says that we get religious freedom, but on a daily basis, they, number one, are hiding information from people to make them think that immunizations are required. You didn't think we would go into a medical discussion here, but this is part of religious freedom, isn't it? Everybody thinks of the obvious of, I want to go to the Church of the Fonz, and I'm going to pray to the Almighty, and it's the Church of the Fonz, and I'm going to express myself in the Church of the Fonz. That's the obvious stuff, and that's the stuff they're not really going to take away, but it's things like this, like things like just immunization shots. There are people that have problems with immunization shots because it's a religious and moral thing that they have against it. Not just medical. It's moral and religiously wrong for that person. However, there are people still being forced for immunizations to get into school, to get into college, and definitely to get into medical school. They require immunizations for medical school, and it is very, very difficult for you to get out of those immunizations. I could probably do an entire show just on religious freedom, so let's move on. The next thing in here is the freedom of speech. They can't stop the freedom of speech. Oh, bull, they won't stop the freedom of speech. You go to Virginia Beach during tourist season, and you will get a ticket. No joke. You will get a ticket in Virginia Beach, Virginia, just because you cussed. If you say a curse word, and see, I don't cuss. I hardly ever cuss because it's just I'm Christian and I just choose not to do that, and I prefer not to do that in front of other people for their own sake because they may find offense to it, they may not. I don't find offense when other people do because that's their language and they can speak however they speak. They have a right to speech. They have the freedom of speech. But you go to Virginia Beach, Virginia, and you cuss in front of a cop and you will get a ticket. But they're not stopping free speech, are they? They don't stop free speech. There are people that are peaceably assembling, and some of them don't peacefully assemble. Okay, but let's say there are people that peacefully assemble, and they bring out the SWAT team to take care of them. Freedom of speech has gone to the wayside. For the most part, freedom of speech is gone. It's freedom of speech as long as it's politically correct. It's freedom of speech as long as you're not going against something that the government says. Freedom of speech is gone. Fortunately, they haven't stolen freedom of speech from podcasting yet. You also get the freedom to peaceably assemble. In other words, you can't stop me from getting a group together on the public streets in front of the White House and yelling, "Government officials are crooks. Government officials are crooks. Heck no, we won't go." Okay? Or you can't stop me from getting a group of people together to complain about the government being such idiots. And believe me, there are a lot of them in it. Okay? You have the freedom to peaceably assemble. So you can get a group of people as long as it's peaceful, as long as you are not creating havoc and you're overthrowing cars and setting buildings on fire, as long as you're not doing any of that, as long as it's peaceful, you have the freedom to assemble on the public street. In public, you have the ability to assemble. Okay? That is a right in the first article of the Bill of Rights. You also have on here the freedom of the press. You cannot stop the news sources from reporting the news. Now, this one is very loaded, and we all know that. I can report the news the way I see fit. That is fine. But most news stations, MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, I know I probably just made a bunch of you mad, but yeah, Fox News is in somebody's pocket too. Most news stations are in the pockets of someone else. The owner of that news station is being told what to do by somebody else. There are news stories that are shot down, not only because they're not interesting, but because they make political unrest, and those are not allowed to be used. The press doesn't have the freedom that they used to have. There is no freedom of the press anymore, but that is a right in the first article. The freedom to petition. I've already talked about this a little bit. You have the freedom to petition the government for a redress of grievances, right? The freedom to petition. The government is required to allow every person to bring their issues to the table. Typically, a petition will require a certain number of signatures before it is considered valid. So you will be required to, let's say you're in a big metropolitan area and they require you to get a petition of 100,000 signatures. You have to get 100,000 signatures before they will look at your petition. But you have a right to that petition. Now, they can throw it out, but they have to actually address the petition, and they have to answer the petition if you have all the signatures required for your population. So that's going to be the first one. We have 9 more to go. The second one is a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. All right? Number one, the state here is not Texas, Arkansas, Tennessee, Vermont, California, New York. That's not the state. The state is people. The state is the country. The state is also the state. The state is a population. It is a community of people. No matter how big or how small, that is a state. That is the state that they're talking about, at least in this one. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free people. Okay? So you have the right to bear arms, to keep and to bear arms. You have the right to carry your own weapons and to own them outright. You have a right to own and carry your weapons because that is necessary to the security of a free state, a free people. Now, let's think about this. You are not allowed to hunt, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I'm pretty darn sure that in the state of Illinois, you are not allowed to hunt with a rifle. Yeah, that's right. I think it's the same way in Michigan too, but anyways, you're not allowed to hunt with a rifle. You can only hunt with a shotgun. There are other laws in which you are not allowed to own a gun at all unless you have a license to own a gun. Not even to carry it, just to own it. You can't own it unless you have a license. They did not mean, when they said a right to bear arms, to keep and bear arms, they didn't mean that you would be stuck with a 17th century crossbow while your government has tanks and nukes. The right to keep and bear arms is so that we have the ability to protect ourselves and our security and our freedoms. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Shall not be infringed. Gun control? That's a violation of this amendment, isn't it? All right? This amendment is for our security. But gun control takes away a lot of our security, doesn't it? Yes. I could go on for days with this too. We have the right to form a militia, to assemble into a citizens-based militia for the purpose to oppose any force attempting to take away our freedoms. So we have the right to form a militia of citizens to oppose any force attempting to take away our freedoms. All right, I'm going to move on to the third one. No soldier shall in time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by the law. Soldiers can't force me to give them rest in my home during peace or war times. One exception, if the law has told me to allow them in during these times, I have to follow the law. So if there's a local law that says that in wartime you must provide rest, then you must provide rest. Now this is kind of an interesting one, because during the Civil War there were people required to house the opposite side because they were considered soldiers. All right. Now you've heard of forced asset forfeiture, or at least I have. Not criminal forfeiture. We're not talking about like you owned a crack house, so you forfeited your crack house. We're talking about strong-arm tactics to take away the property of people because they want to move a freeway in. Strong-arm tactics because somebody wants to get to the natural gas on your property. And not only is there private strong-arm tactics, but there are political attachments. There are government officials that will strong arm you as well. They will utilize the law. They will utilize the law to bully you. All right? That is forced asset forfeiture. They will do that. Now, let me go off on a little tangent here. This was kind of cool. I heard not too long ago, not far from where I live, there is a city or a town that was trying to get an interstate to go through the town. Okay? They wanted it to go through the town. And there were political officials that were buying up all the property so that they could be part, so that they could own this land when the interstate comes through, so that they could sell it for a really good, they can sell it and make a ton of profit off of it. So these people were essentially doing whatever they could to make the residents give them this land. And they caught wind of this, all right? And they actually they changed the plans of the interstate to go around the town a different way because of what happened. Now that right there, that's justice. Oh man, when I heard that news, that was awesome. Anyways, I wanted to go off on that tangent because it just popped into my head. All right, we're going on, 45, 50 minutes now, almost, and I'm just now on the fourth one, so I guess I need to move along. The right of the people, this is number 4, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the person or things to be seized. That is a mouthful, isn't it? So let's break this down. We don't have to break it down a lot. Number 1, you have the right to not be searched, have your home, documents, or property searched without a warrant that is only issued for a real suspected reason based on number 1, evidence, and number 2, an oath or witness statement that names you as the exact person, place, or thing that needs to be searched. So someone knocks on your door dressed in a official's uniform, and they tell you to let them search your home. If they don't have a warrant, they don't have the ability to come in your home. Here's the thing. Always talk to them outside your front door. Do not let them see in your home. All right? And I only say this because they're really good at looking for things that might be probable cause. If you open your door and you're talking and then they see something that they believe would be linked to a crime, they have now the right to enter your home, to search your home, and to search your belongings. So you talk to them outside your door, all right? Because it's based on circumstantial evidence that they entered your home. So if they don't have a warrant, you don't have to let them in. But if they see something that will link you to a crime, they believe it will link you to a crime, they can enter your home. All right, there is an exception to this rule, martial law. In martial law, it is actually lawful, all right? It's lawful. It's a forceful law that removes a little bit of your rights. So remember Boston a long time ago, or it was a while ago. In Boston, they had a little bomb go off or whatever, and they actually called martial law. They actually did, and they told people to stay in their homes, and they went through and they searched people's homes. But in that situation, I think that Boston actually did it well, because once they were done, once the threat was over, it got lifted immediately. No longer was there any martial law. I don't think that martial law was necessarily needed after that bombing, but once the threat was over, they properly relinquished. They did it properly, okay? So I'm not ticked off about this or anything like that. I think they may have went a little overboard, but they did it properly. But the fact is if there's martial law, you cannot keep law enforcement from coming into your home. There's another exception. The Patriot Act. Where have I heard that? So there must be an act that Congress passed that it's good for patriots, right? It's got to be. It's called the Patriot Act. If it's called the Patriot Act, then it's got to be patriotic. It's got to be good for the American people. Well, if you, an American citizen, are considered part of a terror investigation, your property can be searched and seized. All right? By using the excuse of terror investigation, they can monitor religious and political groups without any suspected criminal activity at all whatsoever. This is a First Amendment violation, is it not? You may actually be denied a lawyer, and your conversations to your attorney may be monitored when they give you your attorney. This is a violation of the 6th, but we'll get to the 6th here in a minute. I'm just going over, because I'm in the Patriot Act right now, I'm just going over this stuff, okay? The next one. You can be jailed without charging, nor be able to confront witnesses. That's right. They can hold you without charging you, and they don't have to bring witnesses. You can also be refused an attorney while they're holding you. All they have to do for any of this to happen is label you, quote unquote, an unlawful combatant. They use the name terror or a terrorist or whatever, then they can put it on you. They use the label unlawful combatant, they can use the Patriot Act on you. They can invade every aspect, just about every aspect of your life, if they link you to terrorist activities or unlawful combatant. So the Patriot Act gets rid of a lot of freedoms, which means that the Patriot Act is unconstitutional. All right, so another name that we could give the Patriot Act is the Let's Get Rid of the Sixth Amendment Act. All right, so the next one, this is the 5th one. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service, in time of war or public danger, nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. That is a mouthful. Let's break it down into 3 simple things. The government can't make you pay the price of a capital or famous crime without a grand jury indictment, unless in wartime and you are in an armed force or militia. Okay, so if you are at war, you are in a militia or an armed force, and it's unlawful, and it's a capital crime, it's a famous crime, they don't have to put you in front of a grand jury. But if you are an average Joe and you are not at war, then they have to put you in front of a grand jury for a capital crime. They can get you on I mispronounced that. They cannot get you on the same crime twice. That's the double jeopardy. If you go to court and are innocent, you cannot go back for the exact same crime. Now, don't think that they can't get you, because they can get you, and they'll get you good. They can get you on a different crime. If you did something that is linked to multiple crimes, like it can be used as a link to a different crime, it is very easy for them to hold you based on another crime related to the one you were innocent for. They cannot take your property without the law allowing it. And if taken for public use, compensation must be provided, and not $1 for 100 acres. It has to be a decent price. The going rate. The payment has to be comparable. Now, once again, we know that there is the forced taking of property. People will take your property by force. The government will take your property by force. They will annex property if they want it. But according to the 5th article of the Constitution, or of the Bill of Rights, they can't take your property without the law allowing it. So number one, the law has to sign off on it. And if taken for public use, compensation must be provided that is comparable. Just compensation, not unjust compensation. All right, number 6. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witnesses against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. Remember, I just talked about the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act, which I am labeling the anti-6th article of the Bill of Rights law, the Patriot Act basically just gets rid of this. But let's explain it. If you are accused, they have to make it fast and public if you request it. And the decision makers must be neutral. Your jury must be neutral. The jury cannot, and this is actually one that they still hold to the majority of the time. They have to try their hardest to find a jury that is 100% impartial and that will look at the facts so that they can either acquit you or they can convict you. They must be neutral parties in your jury. They have to tell, once again, if you're accused, they have to tell you what you did and how bad it is. So you have to know what crime you're being accused of, and you have to know how bad the crime is. If they don't tell you what crime you're being accused of, they are violating the 6th Amendment of the Bill of Rights. All right. So I've said they have to make it fast and public, and I also they have to tell you what you did and how bad it is. They have to tell you who is witnessed against you and give you a chance to get your own beneficial witness to prove you are innocent. So any witnesses that are being held against you, your attorney has the right to also question them. And you are allowed to get your own witnesses. You are allowed to get your own witnesses that will benefit you in court and in the proceedings so that you can be found innocent. Technically, you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. Tell me how many times that has worked out for people who have been detained. You also have a right to an attorney. Now, this is actually read to you by your cops or by police officers that detain you, right? You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one, one will be appointed to you by the court system. So you have a right to an attorney, which means don't say anything until you get your attorney, which also means that you have the right to have somebody who knows the law better than you to protect you in court, to represent you in court. That's the word I was looking for. And indefinite detention. Oh, part of the Patriot Act again. I didn't mention this earlier because I wanted to mention it now. Indefinite detention is where they don't tell you of your crime. They don't have to give you witnesses. They don't even have to tell you that it's a crime at all. You don't have to be a criminal. You don't have to be accused of any crime. You can be given indefinite detention, and you can just be put in prison for a crime with no trial whatsoever. So once again, the Patriot Act is the anti-6th Act. Number 7. In suits at common law, where the value in controversy shall exceed $20, the right to trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States than according to the rules of the common law. So this has a couple parts to it. All right, if a lawsuit is bigger than $20, okay? If a lawsuit is bigger than $20, you have the right to have your lawsuit brought in front of a jury. You also have the right to not have the same issue brought up again unless the common law states. So if the common law itself states that that particular thing can be brought up again in court, then you have the right not to have it brought up again. So if you get off of this lawsuit or you get off of this, any fact, right? No fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined. So if a jury says that you are the winner in this case, then you are the winner in this case, and it cannot be re-examined. All right, number 8, excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. A bail will not be so big, this is my take, a bail will not be so big for the reason that you will not be able to pay. So they can't make it so big that you can't pay it just because they want to keep you there. Now, we all know that's not really true, but it is our right. It is our right not to have a bail set against us so big that we're just not able to pay it. The punishment must fit the crime. We can't be cruel and kill you because you ran a stop sign. I'm not going, the law enforcement should not give you 10 years in prison because you jaywalked. Okay? And the little cussing law in Virginia Beach, Virginia, they cannot put you in prison for lifetime because you were caught cussing when there's a sign that says no cussing. But fortunately, the government has come up with this thing called enhanced interrogation. Enhanced interrogation. Wonderful government we have. Enhanced interrogation, things like Guantanamo, the Guantanamo Commission, that is definitely unusual punishment. And they don't tell anybody anything. They just interrogate them and use crazy tactics. That's cruel and unusual punishments inflicted upon people. And don't think that United States citizens are not there. 9. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. This one's very simple, and let me break it down. You can't use one right in the Constitution to get rid of another one. So if you have the right to freedom of speech, you can't use the right, any other right, to get rid of the right to freedom of speech. You cannot use one right in the Constitution to get rid of another one. They are rights that are given to us by our Constitution, and you cannot refute them, and you cannot use another right in the Constitution to get rid of it. The power, I'm going on to the last one now, so just so that you can keep it straight. The power is not delegated, and this is the last one. The power is not delegated to the United States by the Constitution or prohibited to it by the states or reserved to the states respectively or to the people. This one's very important. If the Constitution doesn't say that a state cannot do something, but it also doesn't say that the federal government can, then it means that that is meant for the state or the people, not the federal government. So if the Constitution doesn't say that it is illegal to smoke marijuana, then it basically says it is up to the state to determine whether you can smoke marijuana, not the federal government. So federal mandates, when it's not covered in the Constitution, are illegal. They are unconstitutional, and the state has the right to overthrow them. But then we have this thing, this wonderful... You notice that every time I give you a right, I give you some other new thing that we have put in place that gets rid of that right? We have this thing called federal supremacy, spelled out in Article 6, Clause 2 of the U.S. Constitution. This was added later. It establishes the United States Constitution, federal statutes and treaties as the supreme, quote-unquote, supreme law of the land. The United States Constitution, federal statutes, and treaties as supreme law of the land. Basically, this is an unconstitutional addition to the United States Constitution because it is an addition to the Constitution that gets rid of another right. No rights in the Constitution shall get rid of another right. But now we're getting rid of the right of the state and of the people to govern themselves when the government makes a mandate. I hope that you've made it this far. I hope that you've made it to the end with me. I want you guys to understand something. You need to work on your literacy. All right, you need to work on your understanding of all the procedures used by the judicial system and law enforcement. It's very important that you understand this stuff. Your literacy and the procedures taken by the judicial system and law enforcement, these are very important. I've already given you so many reasons from the very beginning. And you know what? I'm going to go over them real quick again, and I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to explain them. But no one cares about your life and liberty more than you. Law enforcement will find it difficult to take advantage of you because everyone lies, and you're right. You have rights whenever you're stopped. You can keep from incriminating yourself. You can protect yourself from those taking advantage of the judicial system. You can use the power of the population for checking the system. You can protect yourself from the criminal element, and you can protect your privacy. Sort of. Okay? It's very important that you understand all of this stuff. And the Bill of Rights is only a small portion of all of your rights. The Bill of Rights is only a small portion of the Constitution, but that's why I'm going over the Bill of Rights. All right? This is September, and September is National Preparedness Month, right? What is more prepared? The guy who wants to go into the woods and live alone for something that may or may not happen, or the guy who knows the law, the guy who knows his rights, and he knows the procedures of the government. He knows the procedures of the government and how to utilize them for his benefit. Which is actually more prepared? I'm going to say that the second guy, because that scenario is more likely than a viral outbreak. Not that a viral outbreak is unlikely to ever occur, but I'm telling you that there are things that are more likely to occur than that. And you need to be ready for that. You need to build, I tell you every day that you need to build skills and knowledge. You need to build skills and knowledge. Well, this is a skill and a knowledge, isn't it? You need to work on your literacy and your understanding of all of this. You need to know when you're detained, and you need to know when something is lawful, and you need to be able to take appropriate action when something is lawful and when it's not. You need to know when you're being detained. I'm not going to play the video. I thought about playing videos, but there is a video on YouTube. There is a guy who walks up to a guy who's being interrogated by a cop. And he's not talking to the cop. He's not doing anything to the cop. He is out of the way. He's not touching anybody. He is not in the way at all. But the cop keeps badgering him, tells him to get away, tries to bully him, and all he says is, am I being detained? Well, the cop doesn't answer him. Well, sir, am I being detained? And the cop just starts yelling at him. Well, sir, am I being detained? And essentially at the end of it, he basically just walks away from the cop and everything's okay. Here's the thing. There is a woman who got pulled over by a cop. All right? She got pulled over by law enforcement, and she tried to do the same thing. I think this may have been at like a roadblock or something like that. She got pulled over, and the cop was asking her for things, and she decided to not show her ID and all this other stuff. And she decided to start badgering the cop instead of the other way around. She was badgering him a little bit, and then when he told her to step out of the vehicle, she says, am I being detained? And simply, he says, yes, you are being detained. But then she just kept going on and on and on about, am I being detained? Am I being detained? And he ends up ripping her out of that car, putting her on the ground, and cuffing her, and she gets charged for resisting arrest along with whatever else she did. All because she did not know the law. Once that police officer said that you are being detained, as a matter of fact, once they actually pull you over in your vehicle, they can actually claim that you're being detained. But once he says the words, yes, you're being detained, you are under arrest, essentially. You're under arrest. You have to give in to them at that point because you are under arrest. Once you get into the system, Then you can decide whether your arrest was lawful or not. You get your attorney there, and you get his help, his or her help. Then you can determine whether the arrest was lawful. You can bring lawsuits against the state or whatever you want to do. You need to know when you're being detained. You need to know when something is lawful, and you need to take appropriate action when it's not. So remember, everybody, how to be a prepper, my 1-year preparedness course. All right, go there. Purchase that. That's how I make money. And then I've got this new product coming very soon, and I'm very excited about it. I'm extremely excited. So keep going to my shop. That's theprepperpodcast.com/shop. And when that new product shows up, you'll know what it is. And trust me, it will be worth more than what it's worth. Or it will be worth more than what you'll have to pay. All right? So with that, this was Ken Jensen of theprepperpodcast.com teaching you strategies on self-reliance so that you can build a more resilient and more enjoyable life. Have a wonderful week. This is Ken, signing out.